Good morning. Today I will be discussing European Expressionism and its distinct practice from Hollywood. I will be using the 1920 film The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, the 1922 film Nosferatu, and the 1927 film Metropolis as case studies. In order to effectively compare the two cinematic practices, I will look at both models, starting with the Hollywood model, which Driessen and Kramer both described as factory Fordist-like model. The film industry had been centralized and standardized. Genre films were the majority films made, such as comedy films by Chaplin or Western films by John Ford. Very strict rules within Hollywood meant that most of the films made were traditional narrative structures, traditional cinematic structures, for example, Noel Birch's institutional form of representation, and there was a lot of emphasis on characters because movie stars sold tickets. Films in Hollywood were primarily to make money. Meanwhile, Weimar cinema was finding its feet in a post-war market, now learning to compete with cinema at an international level. It wasn't able to compete with the Hollywood machine commercially, and so moved towards making films as art, although it is notable that most German films were financially successful, just nowhere near on the scale that Hollywood films are. Anton Keiss stated, movies left their mark on art, lifestyles, sexuality, gender and politics. They broke taboos and started trends. This sort of environment was perfect for expressionist film to flourish, which rejected traditional methods of narrative and cinematics in exchange for being more inspired by expressionist paintings and literature. German expressionism in film really started with 1920s Robert Wien's The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, a story of death, murder and mayhem. It makes use of dark and twisted visuals, very shadowy lighting, very surreal, nightmarish set design, almost cartoony in many ways. The twist ending and unreliable narrator were completely new narrative techniques at the time that would have been outright rejected by Hollywood. Writers Meyer and Janowitz, both outspoken pacifists, used the violent and disturbing content of the film to discuss important and taboo subjects of the time, such as death, murder, mayhem, and chaos, all as a result of the First World War. Christina Moschesi states the film Nosferatu by Frederick Murnau uses layered mise-en-scene, rhythmic editing to confer to the film a compelling visual quality and a narrative that is both engaging and creepily uncanny. Similar to The Cabinet, Nosferatu uses shadowy and unsettling chiaroscuro-style lighting, very unfamiliar kind of setting shot on location, to create a sinister and macabre film. Not to mention the disturbing appearance of Count Orlok makes for one of the first movie monsters. The film's intent to scare and unsettle its audience is completely at odds with Hollywood, while also dealing with themes. It's believed to deal with themes such as repressed death, people still recovering from the mass death of World War I, as well as repressed sexuality. Manal's own homosexuality, which at the time he was required to keep hidden, and this is explained by Freud's essay, The Uncanny. For large budgets, ambitious special effects and grandiose sets would make lots of people think that Metropolis is more similar to a Hollywood film than an expressionist one. However, Fritz Lang would not thank you for this. He said in 1927, Hollywood, while technically superior, could not match the soul and high cultural ambitions of German cinema. His expressionist film would go on to create the film genre of science fiction. It would also adopt heavy influences of artistic movements, Cubism and Futurism, and carry intense themes of religious references such as the Tower of Babel or Moloch, and deal with political issues such as industrialization and fascism. The fact that American studios would go on to cut the film a great deal for a US release just goes to show the differentiation in the markets. The two cinematic practices were not entirely different. For example, both were commercial, both aimed to make money. Hollywood just made more money than Germany. They were both generally character-driven films. They were both made on sets, and what I find notable is that both Fritz Lang and Frederick Murnau had successful Hollywood careers after leaving Germany. Hollywood would emulate their methods in horror, science fiction, and film noir genres. So in conclusion, the European model of expressionism offers a very distinct mode of cinema practice, completely separate from Hollywood's. However, I do believe that Hollywood quickly learned from the success of the European models, reflecting this in their own film, such as those of the horror, noir, and science fiction genre. Thank you very much for listening. Please refer to my bibliography and citations. Thank you very much.